So hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is a short video about the model I'm making now. I don't think I will finish it right now because I have few time in this office to finish this model right now. But I decided to build it because it is one of my favorite cars ever. So it's the Dino 206S from 1967, and this specific version was the car racing at Sebring 1967. It was a long distance race, and it was interesting because usually dinos are always dressed in red, so the body color is basically red. And this was instead the blue dino. I call it the blue dino, it was a kind of color so typical for GT40s, Cobra, Daytona Coupe cars, and so it's quite uncommon to be found over a dino racing. This was used by the Baker Racing team, and the pilot were Ed Crawford and Charlie Kolb. You see, this was an excellent decal sheet that we made after quite a long research, of picture, because it happens to see sometimes the blue dino around, but very often you can see quite of mismatched color because there is absolutely few documentation about this car around, and the few that you will find is mostly black and white pictures. There is I think this car made does not finish result during the race of Sebring, so it was not a very good race for the team. And they were also the same team racing the green Dino. They had the red one, they had the green one, probably was the same one. I think this is chassis number 8, if I'm not wrong. I try to make a little research about this vehicle, and it's a little diversion, to the other build I made back in time of my Dino. This model that I'm presenting here, it is a racing kit that I produced back in 2015, and it was basically obtained using a Japanese copy of a Japanese modeler kit. It was not the original modeler, that was much nicer in the look. Mine was absolutely crap and made by somebody somewhere in Europe, so the quality was absolutely not good at all. And then I decided to make a modification by my own to make it possible to open now we make the major live, you see, to make the engine bay open, if you can see. Here I created 2 hinges, at this point, not because I wanted to remain like a toy, but just because I like both the shapes of the model, so both when it is completely closed, like in this position, and when it is showing up part of the mechanic inside the engine bay. The engine is that one, and that was another kit that I made a couple of years later, the 2050 edition of the car, and it was basically the Dino motor plus a different transaxle. It was specifically built for this car. It was not like the straight Dino that you can find inside Fujimi kit, because the position of the engine is slightly different. It's different, this is longitudinal, the other was I don't know the English term to understand, but the position of the engine was not like it is straight in the Dino. I recreated the exhaust, I recreated the brakes. In this car the brakes were together with the gearbox and the gearbox itself, and it's meant to be placed inside the engine bay. After I will recreate on this side the frame for the motor, for the frame for the rear chassis, and it's something that I will create with evergreen tubes a little later. It's kind of 2 different model when you make this kind of car. So I'm building this, making everything from below, so I created before the external hull of the model, nearly completed, and then I decided to go under and fix up the chassis. The lower part of the car must be cutted, from the original model, and there is the position where you have to create the frame, entering in the body, and I will place it from under the car. This indeed is the dashboard. The dashboard will fit over that. It was a quite simple model, basically was obtained using a curbside model of the Dino. I think today is still the only stuff that exists, if we don't consider the slot racing version made by Cox and the Carrera Digital, that they are not so precise in the look. They neither look like real Dino 206, they look more like a Dino in their fantasy noise items coming from the 70s, I guess. So it is not absolutely something that I consider reliable, like a real display model kit of it. And I'm very happy with the result of the windshield, because in this model, exactly like for the P4 car, the windshield, the front windshield is nearly half of the model, so it's very important that the part remain completely clear. There is some just little dust from my fingers, during the assembly, and also the overall setup. I already fixed the wheels with little pins inside of the main body to give a proper chassis, a proper setup to the entire model. The Dino was quite famous because the wheels were a little inside of the body, and this blue Dino was also slightly famous because she had the covered front light, the covers on the front light that in the picture look a little lighter than what I did. I made them lighter blue to make it different. It was created using tape and glue, the white glue below there, yeah. And so this is the main body, still missing a lot of minor detail. This is just an overall look of how it looks when it is completed and going to the finished look. So I say this will be the external part. So this is basically like to create three different models. One is the external part, one will be the interior part, that is the basic color, with the red seat plus all the gear level, the steering wheel, the seat belts, and everything inside. And the final part will be the engine. So will be three different kits inside one. Just as important when you finish the first overall look of the car, that you maintain that kind of shape. It's very important that the Dino shape is maintained. This car had a very, very sexy appeal. It was extremely beautiful in the look. Reminds like very, very similar look like the P4. I don't think the P4, at least maybe the 412p, but they never raced it in blue, if I'm not wrong. I think there was the green David Piper car, but it was a 412p, was not a P4. And that's it. The wheels in this model, I try to ask around to guys that know much better than me the car of this period about the color of the wheel, because from the few pictures that I have in color, you cannot understand so easy if they are wearing yellow or in gold. And other modelers told me that probably they were in yellow because it was the Clienti version, so the version given to other team, not the official one racing, because just the official cars had the gold wheels like the P4 was. The Ferrari P4 had magnesium wheels looking like gold. It was a dark gold, a pale gold color. And so that's it for now. The model is still quite far to be complete. It's just an overall look of the appeal of the model. And let's have a look for a moment to the engine. The engine that I'm preparing is this one. As you can see, I created some pins for the exhaust folders. The manifold was fixed this way. So this is the exhaust that was present in the ordinary standard kit that I sold in the beginning. In 2015 my model had a closed side of the engine, so I didn't propose it at once like a complete model, also because it was like as you can see from the color of the resin, this is not the last type of resin that I'm using today, that is that yellowish one that you find in the RWB, in the trucks, in the NSX. This was a gray resin. I think it was the smooth on attempt that we test back in since 2012 to 2015. And the main problem of this resin was that it was extremely good for small parts, but it tend to wrinkle on the bigger parts. So when you work like in a dimension like this one for the Dino, is no problem because the car is quite big, so the parts are very, very thick. But when you work on a smaller side, like for example the first Porsche RSR I did, the 74 edition, it was quite easy to be a little bit wrinkled, mostly on the A, B and C pillar. So that's why we switched from this type of resin, from the smooth on, from the yellowish crispy one that we use today. That was the main reason. This was anyway indeed very good for the detail. As you can see, the motor looks pretty good from the camera of my telephone. You cannot see so well, but there is also printed the Dino on the headers. There is the Dino name on the headers. Now you cannot see from my telephone anyway. We'll try to make a macro picture later about this and place it in my Facebook page. copy from there. There is the Dino anyway on the headers of the motor, you know. And down here inside there is a little other details. I recreate these wings with plastic, you know, they are slightly bigger than what was suggested in the original modeler kit, both the rear one and the front one. There is a minor detail. There are the 6 pipes for the carburetors for the engine, and also very nicely molded is the steering wheel. As you can see, this was taken from a photo etched part, so we made it in resin, a photo etched part. I think it's quite convincing. So that's it for now. This is the status of the build. I think it's still missing something like a couple of weeks before being considered finished and completely done, but the overall look is done, so the biggest work is done. Now it's just about the finest detail and the small items around the model. So that's it. See you in the second part of this.